The controversial leader of Slovakia is in the hospital after being shot. We'll tell you if the shooting is politically motivated. President Biden will face off against former President Donald Trump in 2 scheduled debates. We have the details on the dates and the format. Congress holding a hearing on the weaponization of the federal government, what they're finding out about the cases against former President Trump, and the credibility of a key witness testifying against Trump this week. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee signs a bill allowing the death penalty for child rape convictions into law. It's in line with other states approving capital punishment for sexual abuse against minors. The Boy Scouts recently changed their name to Scouting America to be more inclusive. We speak to the founder of an alternative scouting group who says they have a different, more boy-centric approach. The increase in paying for childcare is hurting families across the U.S. We'll tell you what it's costing to send your kids to daycare. Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Chris Beers. Breaking today, Slovakia's populist Prime Minister Robert Fico is fighting for his life. He was severely wounded after being gunned down following a political event Wednesday afternoon, according to his Facebook profile. Here's more.
The 59-year-old was hit in the stomach after 4 shots were fired. The shooting happened outside the House of Culture in the town of Handlova, where he was meeting with supporters. Police have a suspect in custody. The shooting in Slovakia comes 3 weeks ahead of crucial European Parliament elections in which populist and hard-right parties in the 27-nation bloc appear poised to make gains. Fico, a third-time premier, is staging a political comeback after campaigning on a pro-Russian and anti-American message. Critics are worried the country under Fico's leadership would abandon Slovakia's pro-Western course and follow the direction of Hungary under populist Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Thousands have repeatedly rallied in the capital and across Slovakia to protest Fico's policies. Condemnations of political violence quickly came from leaders across Europe, although no motive for the attack was immediately apparent. This is Dave Martin for NTD News.
President Biden issued a statement condemning the horrific act of violence, saying the U.S. Embassy is in close touch with the government of Slovakia and ready to assist. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump will go head-to-head in 2 scheduled debates. Biden agreed to debate on CNN this June, responding to the former president by stating, "Over to you, Donald, as you said, anywhere, anytime, any place." Trump's response on his social media site, Truth Social, "Just tell me when, I'll be there. Let's get ready to rumble." NTD's Dave Martin has the details.
In a video from Biden Wednesday, the president says Donald Trump lost 2 debates.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
There will be 2 debates, with the first set for June 27th on CNN at their Atlanta, Georgia studios. The second is scheduled for September 10th with ABC News. The debates will have firm time limits, alternating speaking turns, and controlled microphones to ensure orderly exchanges. The news network debates will be strictly controlled with moderators and will not have live studio audiences. The Biden camp prefers the TV studio format over the Commission on Presidential Debates proposals to have a live audience. Trump says he recommends more than 2 debates and, for excitement purposes, a very large venue for an audience. The GOP nominee added it's time for a debate so that Biden can explain his highly destructive open border policy, new and ridiculous EV mandates, the allowance of crushing inflation, high taxes, and his really weak foreign policy, which is allowing the world to catch on fire. This is Dave Martin for NTD News.
For more on this, we go now to NTD News contributor Mike Leon. He's the Policy and Strategy Director of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation and host of the news commentary podcast called Can We Please Talk? Good to have you, Mike. Will not having a live audience for these debates help or hurt the candidates?
Chris, good to see you as always, my friend. First off, I'm really shocked that these debates got, set up so quickly with the two networks, CNN and ABC News, respectively. Having appeared on both of the networks and knowing the people in the background, this is a lot of work and a coordinated effort. So kudos to them for getting this all set up. I think the studio format, and you heard in the piece there, President Biden saying that, or at least President Biden's people saying that he prefers the studio format. And you can tell because he did in studio format when he went up against Bernie Sanders back in the 2019 going into 2020 cycle. And he performed pretty well, but he looks completely like a different person right now speaking in front of reporters and things like that. I think the live audience format, we saw it in the GOP primary debates, specifically the second one that happened at the Reagan Library in California. A lot of audience noise. It made it harder for people to hear the messages of the candidates and their platforms. And I think having it in a studio format, one-on-one setting, I think is the right way to go for both of these two.
Now, Biden is saying he won the 2020 debates against Trump. Did he win? And in your opinion, if so, in what way?
Well, it's kind of, from the previous question, Chris, I was watching the first debate again recently, and it's just talking over each other. The moderator was Chris Wallace, who's actually now with CNN, funny enough. And again, happening during the pandemic. So the crowd wasn't as influential because there wasn't as many people and they were wearing masks. But the biggest thing was the talking over each other. And, the package you guys just played before said the format will really call for microphones that can mute folks so people can explain their message, get their minute 30, 2-minute answers to the questions. This is what the people want to hear. If you're watching a debate at home right now and you're thinking about how you should be watching these debates, you need to hear what the candidate is saying. So that way you can decide whether or not you want to vote for them in November. Having a crowd in there and reacting to every little talking point and buzzword, whatever they say in their message, is not the right way to do it. I think this format is a lot better. And I don't know if Biden won both of the debates because in the first one, it was too much talking over each other. And then obviously they ended up canceling the third one. And the second one, I would say, was kind of like a draw.
Also, these two candidates are so deeply opposed to one another. Any audience might be really, volatile. It's possible. Now, Trump says there needs to be more than 2 debates. Why do you think his campaign is calling for that?
Well, I will tell you this. The Free and Equal Election Foundation, we're putting on a debate July 11th, which the former president and current president are invited to, amongst other candidates. Joe Stein from the Green Party and some of the other third-party candidates will be attending. So he's free to and welcome to come to that debate if he wants to. But I think more debates are the better, right? Because at the Free and Equal Election Foundation, that's what we feel. And more voices, more choices, the ability to have the platforms and to debate these topics and issues. You guys just mentioned, there's 6 or 7 key issues that voters are looking at, specifically inflation, economy, foreign policy right now, the crisis that's happening at the border. You can't cover all of that in an hour or 2-hour format once or twice, Chris. You need to have that multiple times, debating these issues and pushing back on each other and actually talking about policies you've implemented for both of these candidates. So I'm in accordance with them. And if they want to come to the July 11th one at Freedom Fest, we would be happy to host them.
All right, Mike Leon, as always, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Congress today holding a hearing on the weaponization of the federal government. This as a criminal trial involving former President Trump continues in New York with his former lawyer Michael Cohen testifying. NTD's Arian Pazdar has the story.
Former lawyer and self-described fixer for former President Trump, Michael Cohen, has been taking the stand in the so-called hush money trial this week. He's been testifying against Trump. Meanwhile, in D.C. on Wednesday, lawmakers on the Hill focused on Cohen's credibility as a witness. They cross-examined a former attorney for Cohen.
According to Alvin Bragg, Michael Cohen was totally, quote, unworthy of belief. Isn't that true?
Without a doubt.
This is the same Michael Cohen who pled guilty to 7 counts in an indictment that had absolutely nothing to do with President Trump and actually predated the first time he met President Trump, correct?
Absolutely true.
And in fact, this is the same Michael Cohen who perjured himself to Congress. Isn't that true?
Yes.
Cohen allegedly also said this regarding prosecuting the former president.
I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything on Donald Trump. Who said that?
Michael Cohen about 10 to 20 times.
If you want to see the full highlights from Wednesday's hearing, make sure to check out NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
Tennessee Governor Bill Lee has signed legislation allowing the death penalty for child rape convictions. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a similar bill nearly a year ago. Florida prosecutors announced in December that they were pursuing the death penalty for a man accused of sexual battery of a 12-year-old. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, the case is considered the first to be pursued under the new law. Critics worry that capital punishment may instill more fear into child rape victims because speaking out could result in an execution. Others say that predators could be incentivized to kill their victims in order to avoid the death penalty. The new Tennessee law goes into effect July 1st. Also from Tennessee, the state, along with 17 other Republican states, are suing the Biden administration. The suit filed in federal court in Knoxville Wednesday is over new rules for protecting transgender workers. The suit alleges the commission is overstepping its authority by unlawfully extending Title VII's protections against sex-based discrimination to cover gender identity. The new rule could leave employers liable if they or another employee use a name or pronoun that does not match with an employee's preferred gender identity. It also allows transgender workers to wear clothing that aligns with their gender identities. The Boy Scouts of America began accepting girls in 2018. The organization recently announced changing its name to Scouting America in an effort to emphasize inclusion. NTD's Daniel Monahan speaks with the CEO of a group called Trail Life USA. He says his organization offers a more traditional alternative.
Mark Hancock is the Chief Executive Officer of Trail Life USA. The organization's website says it aims to be the premier national character development organization for young men. Hancock is also the author of the book, Why Are We Sitting Here Until We Die?, which inspires people to find the question at their core that is waiting to be answered.
Really just encourages people to do big things, to have the courage to step out and do things that may be difficult, challenging, but to go ahead and do it anyway.
The question in Hancock's heart was, what would it be like to have an outdoor boys organization that was Christ-centered and boy-focused? That inspiration led to Trail Life USA, which now has 1,100 troops and close to 60,000 members in all 50 states.
It's anything you would expect from an outdoor boys organization. It's, camping and hiking and patrols and uniforms and handbooks and a robust awards program and a Pinnacle Award, all things.
Hancock says the spiritual emphasis and boy-focused vision are what makes the organization distinct.
Boys and girls are different. That may not be culturally popular, may be politically incorrect, but any legitimate science points to the fact that boys and girls are different. And so we acknowledge that, we accept that, we understand the power of a male-centric environment for boys to be grown up in.
Trail Life USA, according to Hancock, focuses on adventure, character, and leadership.
You got to remember that much of what's good with our society is because we take winning and focused boys and turn them into winning men who will storm the beaches of Normandy and free the world of tyranny, or get on top of a rocket and go to another planet, or cross an uncharted ocean. That kind of stuff is built into boys, and we're taking it out of them in our society by taking away, with participation trophies and not keeping score and all these things. And that's hurting boys.
The Trail Life USA CEO says with tradition and spirituality under attack in the modern world, you have to stick to your guns.
You have to know who you are, and then you have to stand up for who it is that you are. We don't expect everybody to agree with what it is we're doing as Trail Life, but we're clear in what it is that we're doing as Trail Life. We are a Christ-centered organization. These are the principles we follow after. These are biblical foundations, and that is empowering from boys. Boys like to know the score. They like to know the difference between good and bad. They want to know right and wrong. How in the world do you raise a boy in today's culture if you can't use the words right and wrong because you don't have a foundation for good and bad? And so we give them that foundation for good and bad.
To learn more information about Trail Life USA, Visit its website at traillifeusa.com. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
When we come back, a congressional committee is reviewing the government's response to the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge that killed 6 people and severed vital trade routes back in March. And rising childcare costs are hurting American families. That story and more after the break.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
People often ask, where's the best place in Korea to do business?
Chongbuk Free Economic Zone, of course. Take the first step to a successful investment and enjoy a bright future with CP Petchu.
23 سال
16 سال عمري ما حفظ
اما داعش کردی بر خوشکو دایکانی ازدی ما کاری که دور لهمو چمک دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارو خی که است های به تایبت ایران خوشکوریا بشه که دگرت و با حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
مریم بو او هفت روز من بو و داعش ذکرت
تامبوم كرا قوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بهار فيدان نبو باوان رحم نبو قدامنا سؤالان من خادران نزل باوان نفستم بس نا وانا قوبس ناش بجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبرن تي حملي زارود الدم واسسي وان همو جيبرن
وحشیگریه که توا عیاره ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرا و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده که همانه روزانه دست فروشیده.
Imagine being a child, you know, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Welcome back. 4 critical mechanical failures found on board the massive cargo ship that crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge. A hearing with the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure today is reviewing what the federal government has already done in the aftermath of the disastrous accident and what future steps must still be taken. NTD's Fiona G has more.
Hours after the collapse, President Biden announced his intention for the federal government to pay for the initial cost of reconstructing the Key Bridge. And the committee has received a letter from the administration officially requesting that Congress authorize 100% federal cost share to rebuild the bridge, and I've personally spoken to Governor Moore about the request on a couple of occasions. On March 28th, the state of Maryland applied for funding from the Federal Highway Administration's Emergency Relief Program, commonly called ER. And within hours of receiving the Maryland Department of Transportation's application, the Federal Highway Administration approved $60 million in quick release funding, which it said represented roughly 5% or so of the initial total project costs of $1.2 billion. Under the ER program, the federal government will reimburse the state qualifying work at 100% federal cost for the first 270 days.
The state of Maryland estimates it will take between $1.7 and $1.9 billion to rebuild the bridge. The National Transportation Safety Board released a preliminary report detailing mechanical failures. The cargo ship lost power twice the day before the crash. The day of the crash, there were 2 more outages, and the emergency generator didn't generate enough power to steer or propel the ship.
On the 26th, when the ship was about 0.6 miles from the bridge, 1 high voltage and 1 low voltage breaker that were powering most of the vessel's equipment and lighting unexpectedly tripped. As a result, the vessel lost main propulsion. The crew was able to briefly restore power to the vessel, but another blackout occurred when a different breaker tripped. At this point, the ship was about 0.2 miles from the Key Bridge. The crew regained electrical power right before the dolly struck Pier 17, but they were unable to restore propulsion.
The massive cargo ship dolly smashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore on March 26th. The accident caused the bridge to collapse, killing 6 construction workers and heavily hindering critical shipping routes. Fiona G, NTD News.
While the hearing went on, a barge hit a bridge in Galveston, Texas this morning, spilling oil into surrounding waters and closing the only road to a small island. A large piece of the bridge fell. Authorities do not have any immediate information on whether there were any injuries. A rail line is no longer in service. And American households faced worsening financial distress as they endured a combination of higher inflation and rising interest rates. That's according to economists at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. New data from the regional central bank showed that total U.S. household debt surged by $184 billion to more than $17 trillion in the first quarter. Aggregate delinquency rates also advanced in the first 3 months of 2024. Around 3% of outstanding debt is in some stage of delinquency. Mortgage debt increased $190 billion from the previous quarter to more than $12 trillion. Home equity lines of credit balances swelled by $16 billion to $376 billion, rising for the 8th consecutive quarter. And it's going to cost more to take out a student loan. And if you're traveling this Memorial Day, you'll have plenty of company. Here is NTD's Don Ma with today's Business Matters.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Now, if you think rent is high, wait until you need to pay for childcare, because childcare costs continue to be a major financial burden for many parents. According to Childcare Aware of America's latest annual report released today, if you have 2 kids and live in one of 11 states or Washington, D.C., childcare costs at least twice as much as rent. Those states are Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Nebraska, and others. So in every other state in the U.S., placing 2 kids in child care center costs at least a quarter more than the average rent. And if you have a mortgage, the child care bill exceeds annual typical mortgage payments in 45 states and Washington, D.C., according to Child Care Aware. The report looked at care for an infant and 4-year-olds. Nationwide, the average annual cost for care rose to nearly $11,600 per child last year. Meanwhile, the interest rates on new federal student loans is expected to hit a 12-year high, and this upcoming 2024 to 2025 academic year, the interest rates for undergraduate students will rise above 6.5%. That's up from 5.5% for the current year. The federal student loan interest rate has not been that high since 2012 to 2013 school years. Both graduate students and plus loan recipients will also see an interest rate hike this academic school year. And finally, Memorial Day is just less than 2 weeks away, and more than 38 million people are expected to hit the highways. According to AAA, travel for this Memorial Day weekend will be the second highest on record since 2005. And this year, more than 43 million Americans are expected to travel by plane, cruises, and public transportation. That's a 4% increase from last year and close to the previous 2005 record of 44 million travelers. AAA says the busiest times on the roads will be from noon through 7 p.m. on the Thursday and Friday before Memorial Day. All right, Chris, that's all from me, and back to you.
Communist North Korea laundered more than $145 million through virtual currency platform Tornado Cash in March. According to confidential work done by the United Nations Sanctions Monitors, the communist regime stole it last year from a cryptocurrency exchange. Reuters reports that the monitors have been investigating 97 suspected North Korean cyber attacks on cryptocurrency companies between 2017 and 2024, valued at some $3.6 billion. That includes an attack late last year where $147.5 million was stolen from HTX cryptocurrency exchange before being laundered in March this year. In 2024 alone, they had been looking at 11 cryptocurrency thefts valued at $54.7 million. Many of those may have been conducted by North Koreans, workers inadvertently hired by small crypto-related companies. North Korea has been under UN sanctions since 2006, and those measures have been strengthened over the years in a bid to cut funding for its ballistic missile and nuclear programs. And the Naval Academy's freshman class successfully climbed the greased 21-foot Herndon Monument on Wednesday, marking their official passage from first-year plebes to fourth-class midshipmen. The traditional Herndon climb dates back to the 1950s. The monument is greased with a heavy coat of vegetable shortening, and the plebes must exercise perseverance, teamwork, and ingenuity to replace the hat on top. As they struggle under the weight, a steady stream of water is sprayed over the plebes to cool them off. This year's class, which graduates in 2027, worked for 2 hours, 19 minutes, and 11 seconds to replace the cap, beating last year's time by approximately 11 minutes. Since 1962, when the time has been recorded, the longest recorded time was 4 hours and 5 minutes by the class of 1998. The shortest time was 1 minute and 30 seconds by the class of 1972, but the monument wasn't greased that year. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. We will have more updates on NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. For now, I'm Chris Beers. See you tomorrow.